One big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the reason Reborn. I'm here with my co-host CardiacSoul, and I still don't have the name thing taken care of. Why am I so horrible at this? It really bothers me.
I have mine working, but some of us are professionals.
Well, at least you got that working, we should say.
All right, fair enough. I will never not have audio.
It gives me an opportunity to change my name to something stupid every episode.
There it is, the bright side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we have to do these days in life. We always have to try to find some bright side in the darkness because everything's so fucking bleak and dark. And just horrible. So speaking of horrible, let's get the worst out. So since our recording, there was a shooting in Buffalo, New York, at a grocery store in a predominantly Black area. The shooter, whose name I never even looked up the name, and I don't really care to know his name because he's just a fuckhead as far as I'm concerned. He intentionally targeted predominantly Black area because he was bought into the replacement theory, a theory that has been purported by a upstate New York senator and Tucker Carlson. They both have pretty much promoted this theory that basically white people are being replaced by minorities and they need to do something about it to stop them from being, I don't know if it's wiped out or whatever, which if they think it's being wiped out, that's just stupid. It's a healthy number of white people in the world. I don't think you guys are going to be stomped out anytime soon, but they believe populations of minorities growing is a threat to their existence. By the way, kind of brings you back to the abortion thing, since the people who are going to be affected the most by the Roe versus Wade decision are going to be people of colors. And, they're going to end up having a lot of children that they can't afford to take care of. And, not being able to afford proper health care, proper, contraception. You're trying to get rid of contraception in some states and stuff like that. So you're going to have a lot of Black, brown, babies and other minorities coming into this world. That's pretty much going to add to our numbers. Therefore, how are you going to compete with that, white people? Now you're being replaced faster because you're getting rid of a means of curtailing people from having babies. Just sit with that logic there. So, but yeah, this kid wrote a 180-page manifesto. 10 people were killed. I believe 3 more were injured. And it was just a terrible, fucked up situation. It sucks because also during that weekend, there were 2 more shootings that I don't think we even got a lot of news on because this was such a big deal. I believe there's one in California past weekend. And I forget where the other one was.
I was not aware of either of those shootings, honestly. Let me bring this back up. I assume they were not also hate crimes, or otherwise I assume they would have.
And from what I have heard, no. But they actually, no. One of them, and I can't remember which one, they thought may have been targeting Asian people. So,
okay. I stand possibly corrected. That's not to say that if it wasn't a hate crime, it's okay. Obviously,
Right.
I just meant I can understand why, especially given how common gun crimes are in America. A non-hate crime one would not leap to the top of the leaderboard of news. So first of all, the replacement theory issue. I guess there's a few aspects to that, right? There is a politically stoked concern that these people have that, and you hear it said different ways, that like Democrats in particular are intentionally trying to make it so that the white people get replaced and their socio-political power gets weakened. That's why supposedly Democrats are, want everybody to just come across the border and don't care about border policy, which is also bullshit. But yeah, there's different aspects to how they talk about it in terms of it being a supposed political strategy of the left. I hadn't really thought about the angle you mentioned where, yes, I guess if we don't have proper birth control and whatnot, there would be more people born. Many of them would be minorities. So that is also kind of stupid. On top of the many other reasons it's stupid, obviously. I hear people like Tucker Carlson's name come up quite a bit, and deservedly so. He does espouse it a lot, and he does have a huge audience. I don't want to say like he's not culpable or anything, but I do hear that his name come up a lot in the news. If you watch, say, CNN or MSNBC or anything like that. And again, it's not that it's wrong, but it's like, it does feel like a more widespread problem than just him. He's one of those guys that does it because it works already, right? Like there's other people who believe this. And I guess Tucker's game is that he can kind of, he's one of those people that's able to talk about racist ideology in kind of a softer way, a little more palatable. Like if you ever like listen to any of the segments, not that I'm suggesting people do, they can be kind of mind-numbing, but he always has this way of like speaking as though he's speaking in like hypothetical terms, or just, I'm just asking questions. And why do they want to do this? Because they want to replace the white people, like.
Yeah, and his way of framing things, oh my God, I hate him.
He's very squirrely with the way he phrases fucking everything. Like just loose enough to give him some deniability that he's really saying something racist, but racist enough that it's obviously racist, what I mean?
Right.
But
I think he comes up is because Fox News is one of the largest watched channels in this country, because there's a lot of batshit insane people who believe stupid shit in this country. And I guess, he comes up because he's the most popular. I believe he has the most popular news show in the nation. So he has the ability, and I say news loosely because there's no such thing as news at Fox. So his spirit of influence on bullshit, kind of puts him at the top of a lot of people's mentions, I guess.
Sure, and I don't mean to suggest that he shouldn't be. I guess what I was going to get.
Oh no, I didn't think you were. I was just saying, like, that's part of the sad reason why he gets so much attention is because he gets so much attention, which he shouldn't, because he's an idiot.
I guess the point I was going to lead into was that it's a larger ecosystem, and I even with just Fox, right? Because that kid seemed to have been also sucked in on a lot of online forums. I think, was it 4chan? Some of those places where this type of shit tends to fester. And there's we talk about the conservative media ecosystem. And it is always worth remembering that does not just mean Fox or OAN. It also includes the more net-based side of that. Like I don't peruse a lot of the 4chan, 8chan, whatever Reddit forums these people are, whatever dark parts of the web these people live in.
I couldn't tell you where to find stupid shit like that.
I'm certain that stuff and whatever YouTube rabbit holes and whatever they find on Google are a huge factor to it as well. I think the dangerous thing about Tucker, as I was trying to get at before, is that he makes it more palatable to the mainstream, I guess, helps share it more with mainstream people. Maybe some of the people who don't live in the online cesspits that these same, like that kid lived in, but he can spread it to those of us who aren't looking for it either. All that aside, really, truly fucking vile. I don't know what the progress is on it being prosecuted as a hate crime, but it pretty clearly is, right? So like, I would find it difficult to suggest that wasn't the case. He was pretty explicit about it in his writing, as far as I know. I did not sit down and read the full almost 200-page love letter to death and violence he wrote, but from what I understand, he was pretty clear in why he was doing it. Like you said, he targeted that place specifically because it had a lot of Black people. He seemed to have been planning this out for a long time, looked into the history of this place. Very methodical, very fucking creepy. Also had a history of violent threats before.
Yeah. And it's just like trying to figure out, where were his parents? Like, how does this kid get these guns and have the ability to travel like he did to do this? Like, I won't even go into the whole gun issue because we can sit here and say like gun rules, laws, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we know what's going to happen, sadly. Like, none of that shit's going to actually be addressed or taken care of, sadly.
Oh, I will say I don't know what his home family life quite was like. I did see a little bit of like his school history, his history of threats, but I was like, I don't understand what, to your point about his parents, what that situation is like. I remember reading some line in an article that was like, the FBI searched a home that was related to this motherfucker. It's like, does he not have a home? Like, what is this dude's deal? Not that I want to know that much detail about his life, but if it was like phrased in such a way that it made me think he did not have a typical like mom, dad living home setup or something like that.
Yeah, and it's funny because no one has tried to, at least nothing that I've seen has shown that they have tried to get in touch with the parents or try to like have the story of the parents and things like that. You know how they'll do with some people, generally people of color, like, oh, they had a troubled home life and stuff like that. Like, for all the talk of the mental health issues that they've thrown out with him, I haven't really seen a lot of like qualification beyond the school stuff, the stuff that they said happened at school. You know what I mean? Usually it's just like, you get the people like, he was such a kind boy, ex-family, family members saying he was such a kind boy, or neighbors, like, he didn't seem like people to build this narrative like they don't know why this kid it was the way he was, and try to frame it as just like this tragedy and mental instability. Like, yeah, again, they've been calling mental like issues, but no one's really qualified it like they usually do in the media.
Yeah. Even with the school stuff, I didn't see much mention of the family. They were just like, yeah, the police kind of came and then he got some sort of counseling or something, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I hadn't really thought about it until you said it, but like, yeah, even in those stories, whatever his family dynamic is seemed weirdly absent. So I don't know what his deal is, but
yeah, it's pretty wild.
I don't know if you ever see those like memes online that are like, it doesn't matter what people think, we should all be able to get along and shit. I've heard that stuff, even back in the day with like religious fanatics as well, the kind of people who might go and say bomb an abortion clinic or something like that. It's like, it does kind of matter what you think on some level, right? Because what you think will inform your actions. That's a pretty direct line. Like, if you think that white people are being, I don't know, killed and overthrown or some crazy shit, then yeah, you might end up doing some crazy shit like this. Like, if you take a particular stance on what life is like, then you might end up killing an abortion doctor. You know, like, it matters what you think and what you believe. You need to stop saying shit like that.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. And sad thing is, we're talking about this about a week after, at the time of the recording. I feel like by next week, no one's going to care. And they're going to move on to whatever other bullshit they could throw in away. And we're just going to have more shootings and more shootings. Because, again, like I said, there were actually 2 other shootings, not as big, but there were 2 more shootings, and they barely got a blip on the radar because this got the focus. And then, you know, we're slowly moving towards other things in the news cycle that is starting to make this fade out as well. And it's just like, yeah, it's just going to keep happening because it's an accepted norm now, I think, in this country.
That's depressing, but yeah, I'm trying to like disagree with you, but I kind of don't. And even though I've heard quite a bit about it, it still doesn't feel like it. I can't even blame the news really.
It doesn't feel like it was before, does it?
Yeah, it's a big deal, but it kind of doesn't feel like that. Like, we're talking about it. There are times where we've had like shootings where, you know, the racial motivation was kind of, you know, maybe kind of questionable. Like, was it for race? I don't know. Blah blah blah. It's like, this kid was very clearly carrying out. I don't know what we call it. I was going to say a hit, not genocide. What's the word? Whatever. He was murdering a bunch of black people, like, very specifically, very racist. You know, like, it should feel like a bigger deal than it feels, but it kind of doesn't feel like it should.
And, you know, I think it's the shootings, period, be it racially motivated or not, because, again, going back to the fact that there were other shootings, it was like, okay, this one is kind of big because there was a lot more people. I feel like that's what they did. They kind of did the rankings because, like, well, this was 10 people and a bunch of other people injured. And, you know, there's a bigger story to this. But the other 2 shootings, they're just normal mass shootings. Like, okay, like, we've gotten to that point, like, you know, where you see on the news a shootout in such and such an area, and then a follow-up story be like, 1 man was found shot in the neighborhood. It's like, now we're starting to rank it like that, which is fucking sad to me if you think about it, you really think about it. You know,
I hadn't really thought about it till you said, you know, we're kind of skipping over the gun debate part because we're not going to do much about it. But I was reading one of the articles said that he, you know, legally obtained this AR-15 or whatever. And it didn't occur to me till you had said that when I read that line, I just kind of glossed over it. Like, I didn't even really care. I shouldn't say I didn't care, but like, I didn't even bother to think about the fact that he, you know, legally acquired an AR-15. Because when the article said that, I was like, well, duh. Like, that happens all the time, right? Like,
all right.
Of course he legally acquired an AR-15 because you can legally acquire it. That's like saying I legally acquired a can of soda from a vending machine. Like, what? Why would you bother to illegally acquire when you can just kind of get one?
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh, but it seemed almost comical that they would go out of their way to say that. Like, it's somehow shocking and appalling in a way that we're not used to. It's like, well, duh.
Yeah.
You got it somehow.
It's just fucked. And it's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen sometime. So I mean, shit, we're coming to summer. There's gonna be a lot more opportunities for crazy people like this.
And I don't feel good that I was that flippant about it when I read it. I'm just saying it was like,
oh no, I know what
I didn't have this weird
like
eye-rolling response to it.
It's a very sad thing because we really are moving towards a place in this country where things like this are just mundane. I mean, again, go back to how I said before. It's like, you know, I remember when people getting shot in a neighborhood was a crazy thing that people had outraged. And I also remember as like violence escalated in America, it transitioned to like, oh yeah, these are just a couple of stories in the news. And now what's the weather like? And we just be like, okay, well, we expect to hear a couple of people shot, so we don't really react like we used to. And it's getting this way with the whole mass shooting things. I mean, think about like all the crazy shootings that we've had over the last decade. It's been so much that, yeah, it's just like you just kind of expect to hear it, and that's so sad. It's so fucking sad. Like,
I feel like maybe this is too cynical. Because I was thinking back when wow, I feel terrible that his name is kind of escaping me. It was the police shooting that caused, you know, that big
George Floyd.
Yes, sorry. I remember when that happened, like not only were like there were a bunch of protests and marches, I remember even at my job, like we were doing some sort of event, you know, some sort of quarterly thing where we were talking about the business, and the guy leading it just kind of stopped at the beginning. He took some time at the beginning, like a while, to really sort of talk about that and the social issue in general. And that was cool, but I was like, I don't feel like I went to work this week and anybody's mentioned this shooting. And I get that, you know, the dynamic is different because it was a police shooting, but I was like, this shooting was far more obviously a racist shooting. You know what I mean? Like, I do think the George Floyd thing was racist too, but like,
yeah,
comparatively, you could at least sort of argue that maybe
he
was just
he left you a book
and
saying that I'm going to do this for this reason. I mean, come on.
Like, this one is far more obvious, yet it feels far less talked about somehow. I don't know if, again, maybe I'm being cynical. Maybe it's just the difference with, you know, the police brutality aspect to it. I don't know. But if I felt like we kind of already gotten over it.
I think you're right. Like I said, it's going to disappear soon because like the reaction hasn't been as visceral, at least from my perspective too. And it's funny because the irony of you bringing up the George Floyd thing also is that this shows you how things have kind of, you know, all just become just a part of the norm and wash within each other. I forgot that a day or two ago, one of the officers involved in the George Floyd shooting pleaded guilty to his part in the whole situation. You would think that would be somewhat of a celebratory moment, but
I didn't even know.
It's just, exactly. It's like a back page news type thing these days, which is fucking sad.
And that's why I said, like, I don't want to shit on the news too much because it's like we're numb to it to the point where it's like I don't even know how exactly you frame that story to make it stick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not trying to shit on them too hard because I don't really know how you would say it either. Like,
no, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of focus on the manifesto, but that doesn't seem to work either because we've had other, what's the name, Dylan Roof or something, like we've had other killers like that recently too. So
yeah. You're numb at the fact that it happens, and you're kind of just like meant to any news from it because you don't, sadly, you don't expect it to get better. And that's the most, I think, the most exhausting part of the whole thing to me is like, I could sit and I could rage and like protest and all that, but do I really feel like it's going to get better? And you shouldn't want to be in that position where you don't want to act anymore because you don't think it's going to get better. Because then it will never get better. Because and it's, but you get tired, man. you get fucking tired of like,
and then that's the only reason I'm like focusing on like how the news and ultimately like how politicians would talk about it, because it's like I don't know, skip the news level, the politician level, like what do they say at this point to really muster up the larger political will to do something about it? Well, maybe that's not even the problem. I mean, I shouldn't have gotten into that topic. I'm sorry, because that might have been a discussion more about overcoming the filibuster and certain Senate challenges. So maybe that's not even really the question I should have bothered asking. So let me drop that issue and we can move on.
Yeah, it's fucked. It's very, very fucked. Yeah, I'm not even moved by some of the dumb shit that some of the Republicans have said either. That's how, when that shit is fucking bad. Oh man.
I don't even know what they said. Yeah, you're right. I
Well,
didn't even pay attention
exactly.
to them
'Cause I
anymore.
know Ted Cruz said something, but I'd be damned if I really remember what he said. It was something stupid, and it's just like I just don't. I can't say that I don't care, but I just I don't know. I guess like I just don't have the strength in me anymore. It's like because it's just all fucking like until something's actually done. What fucking more can you do?
I think I wasn't listening because they've gotten to a point where it's like you don't need to listen because you can just kind of assume they're going to say the craziest thing you can think of. It's like, especially like not even just Trump, but like when the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world really started to creep in, and obviously Ted Cruz and all these weirdo grifters who've been there for a while. It's like, do you really need to actually hear them say what they're going to say? You know that they're going to be an asshole in any fucking given issue. Like, no real point in reading it. I'm not even offended anymore. I'm just like, yeah, I would be more shocked if you didn't say something stupid. So it's like, I don't have any motivation to really seek out your words at this point.
Yeah, no, it's such a shame. Such a damn shame.
Yeah, let's see. I know there was an arraignment or whatever. I guess let's see how that goes.
And the last thing on this, and then I think we can move on. That's another thing that came up too, that in a conversation with a friend of mine. We were talking about that and like, what is actually going to happen with this kid. And I sadly was the one to say, like, wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't have anything happen, because we all remember Kyle Rittenhouse. Who's to say there's not another like judge somewhere in the Buffalo area that's going to be just like that judge and be like, yeah, he's just a troubled young youth. He was, and be light on him.
I have nothing to say to that.
Right. Yeah. So it's just all fucked. It's just all fucking fucked. Speaking of things that are fucked, but things that make me happy that they're fucked, Elon Musk is truly not having a good time since he's decided he was going to be the one to bring truth and free speech back to social media. So a few Elon Musk stories this week. One, it's looking even bleaker that he will be able to purchase Twitter, as he doesn't seem to have the financial backing, and his company is starting to have financial losses as well. Stocks for Tesla have been decreasing since his announcement of buying Twitter. He has been said to actually have be losing some of his personal money as well in this whole situation as the stocks plummet. And he's trying to procure the money to purchase Twitter. And to top it off, news came out that a former employee of SpaceX was sexually harassed by him and offered to pay and was offered $250,000 to be quiet about the ordeal. To which Elon Musk is exasperated even more by challenging this person to look at him naked and be able to point out all his blemishes and birthmarks and shit like that, which I don't know if that's the proper way to use to a sexual assault, allegation. Why don't you come here and let me get naked in front of you, and you tell me if you remember when I got naked in front of you? Okay.
Imagine really saying "pick my dick" out of a lineup. Like, that's a great legal move,
right?
And yet I have to listen to everybody tell me this guy's a fucking genius. I don't want to go on that rant again, but like, Jesus Christ.
Cheap one.
Where to start with that? I think I mentioned it last time we talked about it, but I remember in one of the statements, I think it was put out by Twitter when the sale supposedly went on pause or whatever. It's like, well, we got to look at shit and do what's best for Twitter. And I just remember thinking, like, that statement has no fucking weight because you guys decided to try and sell it to him in the first place. Like, it was selling to him best for Twitter, really, best for the world. It might have been best for those of you who stood to profit from that, but like, come on. So I just can't take that fucking chatter seriously. I can't take seriously anybody who is looking at Elon as this great savior who is going to give us free speech on Twitter. Again, he's not a proponent for free speech. I mentioned other examples before, but here's a nice one: paying off someone to shut the fuck up about their sexual harassment. Yeah. Right? Like, how many examples do you need of this motherfucker not wanting people to talk in negative ways about him? I think the example I used last time was somebody was talking shit about Tesla or something, and he made it so I guess he couldn't like buy their car. They like shut down some of the features in that car, which I guess apparently they can do. So no, he's not a free speech advocate fucking at all. At all. That is a fiction, that is a myth. Him having financial troubles here in this purchase, that is dumb and embarrassing. Maybe he really is a genius and he turns this around. It was his plan all along. I don't fucking know, but so far it doesn't look like genius fucking moves. It look like an ego trip that's going to cost him a lot of money. And I feel like even if it doesn't work out and it does cost him a lot of money, the people who are running their mouths saying he's a fucking genius are not going to take it back. Because, like, just yesterday I was listening to somebody talk about, like, I think it was one of Mars segments. He was talking about, like, technology and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, stop talking about the CEOs like they're the engineers. Like, I'm not hating on Steve Jobs or anything, but he did not fucking make the iPhone as such. Like, stop saying things like that. I mean, that just tells me you guys don't understand what engineering is. And that's not an insult to those people. I'm just saying, like, there is a demarcation of responsibilities.
Yeah, it's kind of like how people in this country do with the president. Like, everything that happens seems to be because of Biden. And it's like there's no context or nuance or understanding that there's other, like, mechanisms in play here.
Yeah. There are people whose whole life's work is like dedicated to one small sector of the government, like.
Right.
There's people hyper focused on things in the FDA, and not even the FDA as a whole, just like one part of the FDA. Like, and again, that is not the shit on the guy at the top. He matters too. It's just know where the lines are. All right. I'm an engineer. That doesn't mean I hate like my CEOs or anything. They're very important. People who pay me money are very important to me.
Yeah.
And they do facilitate things happening, but that does not mean they made it themselves. Sorry. I said I wasn't going to get on that fucking rant, and I did anyway.
No, I don't blame you, because it's like, if you someone who have some understanding of nuance, context, and just basic thinking, you are intellectually offended by the notion that this guy is getting this label, especially when you see the things he says that aren't the things that a genius would say. Like, come on. Like, no. And that's not to say that you're saying that you're a genius or that I'm saying that I'm a genius.
Yeah.
But I do know that I'm not stupid. And when you throw shit like that towards people like him, like, I feel insulted because you're trying to tell me that I'm wrong. And it's like, no, I'm not. I'm not stupid. Don't do that. Like, come on.
I'm insulted by just accepting that narrative. Like if you,
Yeah,
because I've yielded to characters like that. I'm like, all right, I could give them that they at least throw their money toward interesting things at most. You know what I mean? Like if you were just saying something like that, then yeah, fine. They have money and they throw it at whatever interesting projects might be of interest to you. I when I was younger, I cared about electric cars, so I don't hate Elon for throwing a bunch of money at electric cars. Like that doesn't bug me. But don't sit there and act like he built that car. That's all I'm saying. Like,
yeah. Again, I mentioned it last week.
You can credit people for the things they actually do.
Right. He just bought the company. He didn't create it or come up with the idea. He just bought it and he financed it. Good for him for financing it because Tesla becoming a bigger company put more emphasis on the idea of the benefits of electric cars. And now we're in an era where, the government is starting to be more behind the idea of electric cars. And we're starting to have not just luxury electric cars like Tesla, but we're having affordable, efficient electric cars being built by all the other car manufacturers that will help other people, in the long run.
Right.
I can get a $35,000 electric car instead of having to pay the $65,000 for or more for a Tesla now, because his company showed the people that this is an actual viable market and something that can, be acquired by many people now. So hats off to that. He's not a fucking genius again for bankrolling them, but I do acknowledge that him putting the money behind it helped those people who are the geniuses who developed the technology get us to where we are now.
And that should be more than enough praise. That's a ton of praise. Like you're acknowledging like a huge social technological change that he was a part of. Like, why does he need more than that?
Right.
You had some money and you were willing to put it towards this particular thing. Bravo. That's where the praise stops. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's tons of praise right there. You should be good with that.
Yeah.
As far as the sexual, harassment case itself, I read this story and I just thought this is all really cringy. Like you got these people, I guess, on SpaceX who are, in her case, just hired to be a flight attendant. And you're like, well, you should get a masseuse license so you can give me massages. Because I guess apparently massages are like a perk there. Which, massages are nice and healthy, I guess. But
yeah, but he didn't just
it didn't read a little creepy in this context.
He didn't just want a massage. He wanted to get his dick massage. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, yeah, he took it that step further. He whipped it out and was like, I'll buy you a horse if you do a little more. Apparently, she rode horses or something, and he offered to buy her a horse. That is one of the stupidest, I don't want to call it pickup lines, but moves, I guess. Like, I guess you happen to know she rides horses or something, so you're like, I'll get you a horse. Even if she really wanted a horse, horses cost money and shit to maintain. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that the main obstacle to her not having a horse apparently is just not being able to buy one.
Well, and more to that, it's kind of insulting
it's so
to
strange.
her. It's insulting to her to think that she is so hard up to have a horse that she would do anything to get a horse, including fucking you. Oh, okay. It's sad.
I just don't understand that. It was such a weird. I mean, doing all that shit at all is horrible, right? But like, just the way he went about it when I was reading that story, I was like, this is your genius? This is your genius. His brilliant move was to try and bribe her for, I assume, a hand job or something with a horse. That's your Einstein. That's your Tony Stark. Really? He's not. I was like, I read that. I'm like, all right, this guy is even dumber than I was saying before. Like he's not even like the normal level of smart if that's his fucking move.
Yeah, like
not smart or charming. I'll say that. I was like, Jesus Christ.
yeah, it's like you've actually, somehow found your way into the pants of women enough so to have children with them and actually marry a couple of them. Like, couldn't you just gone that route again? Like, you are one of the richest people on the planet, supposedly. Because who knows what he's going to be after this whole debacle with Twitter. But yeah, don't you like? I don't know. It's just weird. He's weird. He's not very bright, and the people who, put him up on a pedestal are weird and not too bright either. So I don't know.
I made the Trump comparison last week, and I guess it kind of follows through because back during Trump's presidency, I said something along the lines of, Trump was getting away with like all these money schemes, getting all this money from banks and all this shit. And the act of him and his ego making himself be president really just caused us to shine more of a light on the shit he'd been doing for years and years already. Like he kind of cost himself money by becoming president, by letting his ego take over. And I guess that's the similarity I'm seeing here with Elon, where it's like, was Elon really having any financial problems before trying to pull off this move? Was he even really having that much of like a reputation issue? You know what I mean?
All right.
Like, the act of doing this has had one, damage to his reputation, and two, probably damage to his business. It's like, it just wasn't fucking worth it. It's really dumb.
No, not at all. But he's a genius, so hey. All right. So last big topic, and then I'm gonna call an audible and throw in a bonus after this.
Okay.
So families are now rationing formula for their children as the shortage increases. Biden has responded by ordering that the military get involved in trying to transport and deliver formula to different places, and that there's government backing to provide people with the necessary means as far as the formula goes. It's crazy because it's like in the middle of this like inflation and all of this, like we're starting to see like just a lot of things just get totally out of hand. Also, for some background, part of the reason why we're having a formula shortage is because even though we're treating the pandemic as if it's over here, it's actually not over, and other countries aren't treating it as such. So a lot of the main facilities where this formula is manufactured are in China and other Asian bloc countries. These countries have had increased numbers in COVID and have shut down a lot of these facilities in order to combat the rise of COVID cases as the year gone on. And that's part of why we're having the shortage, because they're not producing on the level, if producing at all, due to recent outbreaks in their country. Of course, Republicans seem to be pretty negative against this as usual. Basically blaming Biden for this. It's his fault. If you weren't giving formula to these people crossing the border, we'd have enough formula for people in this country. Little known fact, it is actually federally required that immigrants are given the means to have access to formula and decent facilities, because it's part of I forget which amendment, but the whole you can't, exhibit cruelty and behave cruelty towards people because of their race, color, or what have you, is in the Constitution. And part of that protects the idea of, hey, you can't just take all these people coming from another country and throw them in some shithole and let them starve and suffer to death. No, you can't exhibit any cruel and unusual punishment, at least not openly. I should say, because Lord knows that people still do that dumb shit. But I guess, and this is probably part of the reason why the Buffalo thing is getting out of the zeitgeist, I guess, because this is now a topic of discussion. What do you feel about this whole situation? More importantly, why do we have to keep doing these type of stories where people take things and they escalate it to a point where it shouldn't be, but don't want to help fix the problem, just want to point the finger?
I remember when you started, this episode of the podcast talking about the big thing up front. I really thought you were going to talk about the baby formula thing over the hate crime, which I'm not trying to pit them against each other, but this one honestly depressed me a bit more, because I was like, that's really terrifying that we're going to have. I said we already have. I've seen some stories already, like I said, the rationing, but I remember seeing a story earlier about some woman who I guess needs some sort of special formula for her child that she's having trouble getting. I guess this one's a little bit more depressing. And I mean, one, depressing because it hurts kids, but two, I think it shows, as we've been seeing a lot, these sort of vulnerabilities that we have in our systems. You talked about, factories abroad and whatnot, but I've also seen as well that I guess we have some strict regulations as far as importing baby formula in the US, which was new to me. I didn't really think about where baby formula came from. I don't even exactly know what it is, to be honest. I don't spend that much time around kids. I remember thinking, all right, so we don't really import as much. And I guess there's some talk about loosening those restrictions and whatever, but it's do we not have, every time something like this happens, we just realize, one, we apparently don't have much of a contingency plan for shit going wrong.
Not at all.
And two, the systems themselves are already in very precarious positions. So, there was the import regulation issue that we have. Apparently, we also have, as is the case with other industries, a limited number of suppliers here, who I guess, I never thought of using the phrase, big baby formula for whatever market that is, but apparently there's only a couple that really do this here. And they had trouble. I think last year there was some contamination issue as well. So a lot of things going wrong. We need to really think about the design of our systems in general. This should not, I shouldn't just chalk it up to that. Like I said, there was, I think back in November or something, some whistleblower case with, what's the name of that company? CG, something like that? Talking about possible contamination or something like that. It took them a while to address that.
Yeah.
Which also kind of exacerbated the issue. But I guess that just circles back. It's one, we don't have contingency plans. Two, our systems are vulnerable all the time. And three, when we do have a problem, it takes too long to fix them. We don't seem to be flexible and fast enough to deal with these problems. So even after we address them, and even after everybody fucking knows about them, I'm sure maybe somebody actually in the government, in these systems working on it might feel a little differently, but it's for the public, it's like, Jesus Christ. And, all right, we know it's a problem now. Move your ass. There's just this sort of, at least on the outside, you get this sense of like this red tape strangulation that keeps us from moving and fixing fucking anything. And yeah, I think you talked about the move in Congress to try to do something about it, and even that's blocked by Republicans. And it's like, where are we where we create these problems for ourselves and then stop ourselves from also fixing them? Sorry.
You know, our systems are not built for flexibility, especially since, as currently constructed, our congressional measures pretty much promote not getting things done. You know, I hate to say it, but yeah, you probably do need to get rid of the filibuster. You probably do need to get rid of the 60 vote rule and just have a majority rule. Even though that's hard with people like Manchin, still would make a little bit more sense. Like,
I know we talked about the gun thing, but like, if you can't move on fucking babies being able to eat, like, what the fuck can you do anything about?
Right.
Like, how do you expect anybody to have any confidence in our government, in our systems, if you can't even move on this?
Especially when you have people that are going to be just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why do we have to be feeding these people's kids in the mix? Because while they passed, you know, they passed it through Congress, you still had people voting against it, which is like, why are you voting against feeding kids? What, like, kids are starving. Potentially, you could have a crisis where you'll have child death. I don't know if I want to vote for something that'll fix that problem. What? Like, the simple things can't even get through without objection. Like, that should be a slam dunk, man. Come on. Kids need to eat. And again, as the pro-life party, I can't see how any of them would be against protecting these children that, according to them, are already human beings once they are conceived. So why would you do something as inhuman as vote against something like that? It's the thing that you claim that you're out to protect.
Well, they're full of shit. I guess I did say that it was blocked. Yeah. I think a separate bill passed a little later, but that first one, it was like, what, 190 or something Republicans like voted against that first thing. I guess to their credit, like 10, 11 or some Republicans came over and voted, but like, really?
Right.
Like, oh my God.
It's just dumb. It is very fucking dumb. I don't get it. How do y'all vote for these people? Like, seriously. I really would like to know why. Like,
I can't imagine being a new parent right now, because if you're a new parent now, that means you probably just had your kid during the pandemic, which was probably already stressful in itself. Because right. I remember, especially in the early parts of that, like just getting diapers was a challenge.
Right.
And now if getting food for them is going to be like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and again, to the point you brought up, you know, people who have special needs, like, the hell are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, you need specific formula, and it's like, you know, places are running out, and it's terrible. It is really, really terrible. Again, it's just one of the other things that goes back to, like you were saying, we're just not prepared, because a lot of this stuff is due to how we've reacted to this pandemic over the last few years. Like, had we been a more proactive country, we probably wouldn't be as bad as we are. But, you know, the formula thing, production of meat and stuff like that has caused prices to go up, because you don't have the, you know, ability to do like you were before. And in producing like meat, produce and things like that. So everything gets jacked up. But you have shortages in the areas. It's fucking man, it's brutal. And the sad thing is, it's probably gonna get worse, a lot worse, before it gets any better. Because again, there's people out there who are willing to block solutions and slow up the process.
Yeah. I'm an extremist, but I feel like feeding infants is not up for debate. And that's that on that.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, but everything is.
And certainly it's not the only shortage going on globally. Like you said, the supply chain issues in general worldwide are an issue. Plus, with what's going on with Ukraine, them being a big exporter of wheat and whatnot. The world is not in for a good time at this time.
No, it is not. All right. So bonus topic, which has nothing to do with anything political, although I guess you can make it political because there are people in the comment section for that are debating the politics of, the situation, at least the work etiquette part.
Okay.
WWE suspended Naomi and Sasha Banks. How dare they? So for those who don't watch wrestling, don't know, don't care, just cut the podcast off right now. 1, 2, just a little background. Naomi and Sasha Banks, to the female champions, tag team champions of WWE, walked out after they complained about a specific angle that would have led them down a path that they didn't think was agreeable. They went to management. Management didn't listen, so they decided, you know what, fuck this. We're not going to work tonight. We're out because we don't agree with what we're going to do, which has caused total, debate back and forth between people saying, well, they're wrong. They walked out on their job. Other people saying, no, they stood up for themselves. That's what you should do. And they've been consequently suspended from WWE and had their merchandise pulled off the store while they serve this indefinite suspension. So my question is, whose side are you on, and why is it Naomi and Sasha Banks?
Honestly, I didn't care that much about this issue. I saw the story.
See how numb we're getting? We're getting numb to these issues too. Like we're getting numb to Vince's booking because it's so horrible.
I would say when I saw that and I saw the debate, they shouldn't walk out on their jobs and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I guess, but, let's not pretend like they just walked out on fucking Mania. Because I saw the statement, I think it was Cole, put out on Raw yesterday. I guess it must have been Monday, obviously, because it was Monday Night Raw. Cole put out that statement and he's like, they disappointed millions. And I'm like, really? Millions? Nobody gave a shit about that match. Nobody. Yeah. I know they advertised it as the main event. Nobody cared.
Nobody really wanted to see it. It's like, why are y'all doing this?
I would think if they felt this fucking strongly about it, maybe you should have been talking to them before. Maybe, I don't know if this was one of those situations where you hadn't made that call to the last second. But I assume if they were going to feel that strongly, they didn't just suddenly decide that, right at the start of the show, unless you just didn't tell them right at the start of the show. So I would say your communication is part of the issue. If you're not going to give enough time for people to object to things, when else are they going to be able to do it other than when they hear about it,
Yeah. Now, seriously, maybe the reason I brought this up is because it brings up the whole question of the independent contractor and how that status, how a company should react, or what are the proper, protocols for that. Because like, you know, if you do something like DoorDash, like I've done and all that, you're an independent contractor. And kind of like this, when they need be, they'll throw up the whole, well, you're working for us and you're an employee. Shouldn't you want to do this? But when there's something that you need from them, like, you know, or they're ready to cut you loose, like, well, you're just an independent contractor. You're not necessarily an employee, you know, so we're not obligated to do certain things for you or to keep you around. Type of deal. It's one of those weird things in, you know, society when it comes to employment that I've always just found crazy, because it's like the level of responsibility that they're able to dictate as far as when they are responsible for something and when they aren't is crazy. Just like, you know, with the endorsement thing, people can't have their own Twitch channels because, you know, the company can't get revenue. But again, if I'm an independent contractor, my contract should only evolve around what I do for you. How is it that WWE is able to make it dictate what I do outside my life as well, as far as making money and things like that? It's a very weird thing, but it's not foreign to business because a lot of places treat independent contractors that way.
Which, you know, yet another part of the system that needs to be addressed. Not just, you know, the independent contractors or contractors in general, but the way companies will abuse part-time status, you know what I mean, in order to not
Right.
give employees certain benefits. There's a lot to that game that needs to be fucking addressed. What's his name? Yang. Where are you at, Yang? Come fix this.
Yeah. He kind of got quiet after he lost the mayor election.
Yeah, I don't know what he's up to now, but I don't know. I guess just to circle it back to Sasha and Naomi, I will say it's like I didn't feel like celebrating them for doing that, but I did feel like the company acted like that was a much bigger deal than it really was.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like throw on like my Sasha and Naomi tag team t-shirt and like go onto the streets and be like, yeah, you guys rock for doing that. But like, you know, you would have thought by the little statement they gave out that Sasha and Naomi walked into the crowd and like stabbed a bunch of children or something. It's like they disappointed millions with their behavior. Like, okay.
And it's not behavior foreign to the wrestling business, which is funny because I've seen a lot of people try to bring that up in their defense, which I get it, but I don't necessarily think that it actually matters. But you go back to stories of Stone Cold walking out because he doesn't want to lose to the Big Show, or not wanting to wrestle Brock at a certain stage and threatening to take the belt with him. You saw this shit with Charlotte several times. Charlotte Flair has had incidents where she's shown, like, you know, open resistance to the things that they want her to do, including her and Becky not being on friendly terms and literally having a fight on camera doing fuck shit with their belts, or her actually having an actual fight with Nia Jax during the match that they had, things like that. Like, so
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't go as far as to say that I'm on their side, but what they did does not bother me that much either. Like, I don't feel inclined to like go through. I think that's part of the problem with Twitter in general, is that people kind of feel the need not just to have an opinion, but to like get on a soapbox and spout it to the world. Like every issue is like worthy of a Martin Luther King level response. No, sorry. That company made it a much bigger deal than it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes good sense for them business-wise, given how bad their morale already is. Which, you know, I can say that about like businesses in general. Like I was working at a place that had like a lot of contractors too, and it's like, you know, same thing. Y'all just kind of do what you want, fire people for dumb reasons, and don't care about the morale issues that causes. And in WWE's case, it's a little worse because they had already been firing a lot of their employees. They're cutting a lot of their independent contractors. So I don't know what the atmosphere is like there, but you know, when I talk about how the government probably needs to help regulate some of this predatory behavior with employment status, it's not just for the employees, it's also for the businesses, because I think some of them are suffering from a lack of self-control around how they behave with their employees. You know, you see this in some industries where people are leaving their companies, you know, depending on what the competition structure is like.
Yeah.
The employers don't seem to understand the value of like having employees that actually want to fucking be there. And that is affecting their business, which I don't know what larger effect that has on the economy, but
yeah. But I think that's also one of the inherent problems in the independent contractor market, because a lot of companies like that look at you as like even more so replaceable than like you would see in, you know, regular jobs like retail and things like that, because they feel like they have a selling point that can attract them probably more. Like WWE is considered the pinnacle of wrestling. Of course you want to work for WWE. Of course you want to sign that contract, you know, kind of thing. And there are some benefits to being with WWE that they will probably point out, and they probably have pointed out to Sasha and Naomi. Like, don't you want to be here and make the money that you want to make? You know, why are you being so resistant to this? Why aren't you being a part of the team? Even though I consider you as just a temporary employee, really, because that's basically what an independent contractor generally is. You're only as valuable as how long they feel they need or want you to be.
I mean, we talk about the money, and I'm sure it is a decent amount of money, but I do wonder how things like travel and hotel, which I think they have to pay for themselves,
right,
cut into all that money. And, you know, to relate it real quick back to the Musk sexual harassment situation, from what I understood, that woman, you know, I said that she was encouraged to get a masseuse license. She wasn't being paid to do that. It was just encouraged so that she could get booked on more flights. But it was, from my understanding, to be on her own time and her own dime, as the article said, or as her friend quoted, rather. So it's like, you can talk about this money, but like, again, when the employers don't have any, what's the word, obligation to their employees, it's got a more complicated to talk about the incentive structure like that,
right,
because you need to start factoring some of the costs they're incurring by having that job.
right. It's pretty damn sad. Pretty sad. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out because we're seeing, like, with all these jobs now having shortages because people just don't want to be bothered with the conditions, being underappreciated, not just financially, but just, you know, just being treated fair and being appreciated in that way sometimes matters. And this is what this whole situation with them is about. And this is a situation reflective largely of what society is going through with, as what they call the Great Resignation and all that. Like, people aren't just trying to just be paid. You know, everybody understands the importance of making money, but there's other things that are just as, if not more important, like your health, mentally and physically, and things like that. And people aren't as willing to throw themselves, you know, into a wall for a company like they used to.
You ever watch, I guess it'll be a recommendation for people, John Oliver's show. He'll touch on a lot of those issues, and you know, just in different industries, different companies show some of the working conditions, and like, you think they're ridiculous until you sort of realize a lot of industries are like that, and a lot of companies are like that. They're asked to do some, I know we all think about like the Amazon workers who have to pee in bottles or whatever the fuck they got to do. Yeah, but treatment of workers is a rampant issue And
Yeah.
again, a dumb one, because to your point, it causes shortage of workers, which is ultimately going to affect their products and services, which affects everybody. So, there's no good thing about it.
Yeah. Not at all. So we'll see. Hopefully for them, they'll be okay. Hopefully, this is just WWE just trying to flex. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work well in either party's favor. Like, they're going to be more so in the girls' favor than WWE because they have options outside of WWE, thankfully. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who blinks first. And that's just the reality of the workplace today. It's like, is your need like greater than other things? Are you capable of waiting and like making choices that may cost you financially? Do you want to be doing something that you aren't liking? Like all sorts of questions that are now like they've always been around that are now becoming much more discussed as people's attitude towards the workplace starts to change and evolve.
Sure.
Companies don't seem to, but
I said I'm not like praising them for it, but if that is the hill you want to die on, then I guess good on them for dying on it. Whatever. I can't, those kind of values are for each person to decide. So if it really mattered that much to them, then I guess it just fucking matters that much.
Yeah.
And I can at least accept that much of it. So
yeah, it's interesting. All right. So your suggestion again was, what was it?
Oh, just John Oliver's
watch
last
AEW,
week tonight or whatever it's called.
Like watch AEW as they debut, because that's what the internet says anytime there's something going on with some disgruntled employee. Oh, he's going to AEW. Oh, he's going to WWE. It's like, yeah, shit.
I mean, they could show up in TNA. I'm sorry, Impact, whatever they could call themselves now.
Yeah.
I joke about them, but they're there. They are the cockroach that will never die. So I can't
I mean, yeah.
I got to
acknowledge. I can't think of any time they've actually went out of business. I mean, even ROH officially went out of business, even though they're back now. So yeah.
ROH, NWA went down during the pandemic. Make all the jokes you want, but TNA got the staying power.
Yeah,
I don't know how they do it. Black magic, but fuck it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm mad that you said black magic like that. Well, they do have a black female champion, so maybe it is black magic. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway,
that's all I will be recommending now. I don't know what Marvel shit I said to watch last time, but hopefully you fucking watched it.
Hey, get ready to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi next week.
Jesus.
I know they're just pouring out that content. Pouring it out.
I mean, at least we get a couple of weeks in between with Disney, so yeah. I'll give them that.
Yeah, you get a break. All right. So that'll be it for us today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, listening. Remember, you can always catch us on YouTube and wherever else I post links at. I forget at this moment. But yeah, we appreciate you for stopping through. All right. So you guys take care, and we will see you next time on The Reason Reborn. Peace.